The Mecklenburg County election debates are a service of WTVI, Mecklenburg County, and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The views and opinions expressed in these debates are those of the candidates and do not necessarily represent the views of WTVI, its management, Mecklenburg County, or the League of Women Voters.
WTVI PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters present Election Debate 2015.
Hello, I'm Danielle Koster with WTVI PBS Charlotte. We're delighted you could join us for the Charlotte City Council District 3 debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. There are two candidates in this race. Questions for the debate were provided by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The questions were not shared in advance to the candidates. I'll call on the candidates in random order to answer the questions. The candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. Now, if you'd like to challenge an opponent, please raise your yellow challenge card. You'll have 30 seconds to respond. Each candidate will have 3 challenges during this debate. There are no opening statements, but each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 30-second closing statement. And now, let's meet the candidates for Charlotte City Council District 3. They are Lawana Mayfield and Eric Wayne Netter. Let's begin with our first question. The first question goes to you, Ms. Mayfield. That question is, you have said that job creation and safety are the top issues in your district. What successes in those areas can you specifically take credit for during your years on City Council?
Thank you for that question. I'm extremely proud that in 4 short years, the very first project that I was able to work on was that of the Charlotte Premium Outlet. That project created around 1,500 total jobs when you add construction, but it was between 600 and 900 full and part-time jobs, of which we had a commitment on the front end to have a local job fair, which had never been done before locally, as well as riding out to Mebane, which was the closest Tanger outlet, with residents that live in the Berwick neighborhood to get their input. One of the other things I'm extremely proud of is every year that I've been in office, we've had a District 3 airport job fair, as well as in 2014, I worked with City of Charlotte's Human Resources to have a city job fair, and currently working on now expanding our airport District 3 job fair to include some local businesses that are in the area and that have been contributing and major supporters of our Mayor's Youth Employment Program.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. Mr. Netter, what would you focus on as District 3 representative?
As District 3 representative, one of the main focus would be the lowering of crime in our district.
We'll move on to the third question. Many citizens are concerned that council has a short-term vision about city issues. What is your long-term visit for Charlotte, and how can you convince other council members to support big-picture thinking on issues such as the need for public transportation and economic development linked to social mobility? Ms. Mayfield, we'll start with you.
Well, we've already proven it, thankfully, in this short period of time with the fact that we were able to identify the necessary votes. It takes 6 votes to move anything forward, 7 if there's a challenge, and the fact that this council was able to move forward with our City Links Gold Line to connect the east and west side as we continue to build out the Blue Line extension and connect the north and south. Also looking at other opportunities for mass transportation. When you look at our cross Charlotte trails, you look at the investment that the city has made in partnership with Mecklenburg County to really focus on connectivity and having a more accessible community. I grew up in South Florida, so we had multiple forms of transportation, but the 25, 30 years that I've been in Charlotte, you've seen that we've made a lot of investments in growth, specifically around transportation and alternatives, but we still have a lot of opportunities. Hopefully this week we'll be hearing of another announcement coming out as far as the continued expansion of our transportation throughout the city.
Thank you. And Mr. Netter?
As Charlotte continues to grow, it is very important to link your transit system to various parts of the community. And right now, the CATS is doing a very good job with that. I think it should be expanded a great deal, because I'm still hearing of different constituents who are not being served at this time. So what I would like to see, the CATS transportation system expand a great deal more. With the economic piece of it, as they grow and linking everything together, you make for a much vibrant city.
Would you like to challenge Ms. Mayfield?
I would just like a little clarification from Mr. Netter. Exactly, can you give us a specific example of what that expansion would look like for cats?
Well, what I've seen throughout Charlotte is that you have different various communities that aren't being serviced. And what that would look like, in my opinion, is when you take and listen to the public and find out their needs and try to service those things in junction with the employment that's going on here in Charlotte, you get a lot of those answers taken care of. And excuse me for babbling a little bit.
I'm sorry,
but
your time's up. Would you like to challenge?
No,
Very good. We'll move on to question number 4. Ms. Mayfield and Mr. Netter, for this question, you will have 30 seconds to answer. The question is, recent incidents across the nation have raised public awareness about inequities in policing policies. How do you hold the police department accountable for the changes that need to be made? We'll start with you, Mr. Netter.
Well, one way to hold the police department accountable is to have accountability from the top bottom. I think that citizens should have an input on some policing so that it would help reduce the crime in the areas. So when you allow everyone to participate in that, I believe that you will get...
I'm sorry, your time's up. Ms. Mayfield, we'll move to you.
So some specifics is the fact that this current council, we did move forward with identifying the funding and immediately distributing our body cameras for our officers to help with incidents. But that's more so for the protection of the citizens, the fact that you have the ability to say if you don't want the camera on, but otherwise the cameras will be automatically on and instituted for greater, not only protection, but also for greater clarity and transparency. Also making sure that there's accountability just throughout for the city of Charlotte as well.
Question number 5. African Americans, Hispanics, and other minorities are talking about inequities in housing policies and lack of economic mobility. How would you, as a council person, address those concerns? Ms. Mayfield, we'll start with you.
Thank you for that question. Currently, I have the opportunity of serving on our Housing and Neighborhood Development Committee as well as Economic Development and Budget Committee. So we're having very real conversations. Actually, earlier this year in March, my town hall was specifically on gentrification and what are the impacts, which to my understanding was the first time we've had a real conversation of how are we looking at housing when we do not have the ability to have mandatory inclusionary housing thanks to our General Assembly. We only have voluntary. So we're really looking at how do we create more incentives, how do we create more financial incentives for our development community so that they will be more encouraged to build more mixed income housing and not just specifically high income or workforce housing. When you have a diverse community, you're going to have a much stronger community. We've already seen the impact with a high income community that has gone into foreclosure, and we've seen the impact of people being displaced.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. Mr. Netter, your chance to answer.
With the affordable housing, I've heard various opinions. And with those opinions, what I'm finding is that people are unsatisfied with what is being done with the affordable housing situation. There are people right now I know who are waiting on vast lists, and unfortunately, the development community is not being given the necessary tools to bring that into fruition. So I would work with council to make sure you can have a much viable building process so that you can have affordable housing.
Thank you. Now I would like to let you both know you'd like to challenge.
Again, I'm going to ask for specifics on necessary tools because I want to make sure that the community understands what the limitations are with Charlotte City Council and development community. So I would like to know what necessary tools that Mr. Netter has identified that Charlotte City Council should be providing to our development community.
Well, what is being told to me throughout the community is that they're looking for different type of vouchers that will assist them in that. Look to have some of the restrictions reduced because a lot of individuals are being faced with certain personal issues that are prohibit them from going into these houses. And so when you can address some of those issues and tweak them a little bit, I think it'll make for individuals getting into housing, because right now there are really a great amount of people out there
Thank you,
hurting.
Mr. Netter. All right, for question number 6, I'd like to let you both know that this is a yes or no question, so please keep your answer to yes or no. The question is, no developers have participated in the city's density bonus plan, which would allow higher density for developments that include affordable housing in affluent districts. Is the city too lenient in approving rezonings to higher densities, which don't include affordable housing? Again, please answer with yes or no, Mr. Netter
Yes.
and Ms. Mayfield.
No.
We'll move along to question number 7. This is also a yes or no question. Would you support or vote against expansion of the non-discrimination ordinance for LGBT residents? Ms. Mayfield.
Of course I would support it. I already have.
Mr. Netter.
I would support.
Question number 8. What opportunities are there for economic development in your district, and what will you do to make them happen? We'll start with you, Mr. Netter.
I believe District 3 is the crown jewel of Charlotte based on its history, its past. I believe a lot of that vibrancy needs to return. And in bringing the vibrancy back into the community, that will allow a lot of things that are not being addressed to be addressed, and allow for people to be able to walk down the streets and not worry about being approached with different crimes. It makes for our kids being able to play out in the streets, much safer streets. And so when you bring that together, you make for a beautiful thing if you can make it work.
Thank you, Mr. Netter and Ms. Mayfield.
So specific economic development opportunities. Recently, we had a rezoning request specifically in the Steel Creek area of District 3 that is bringing more diversity as well as more job opportunities into the area. When you look at the district, it's very expansive. For those that in the community that don't know, District 3 runs from South Boulevard to 485, from Summit Tuckasegee area all the way out to Steel Creek. So it's a very diverse geographic area. We've seen growth and opportunities through our rezoning, specifically in South End, through our Todd rezoning, when we're looking at our public transportation and looking at opportunities for more housing and more job creation to try to give people an opportunity to live and work in the same area, opposed to traveling 4 hours or 2.5 hours to gain access to employment. So you also look at, especially my west side, from Freedom, Wilkerson Boulevard, West Boulevard, we still have a lot of land. We still have a lot of growth opportunities.
Your time's up. For question number 9, both of you will have 30 seconds to answer the question. The question is, how can neighborhoods that are targets for gentrification be preserved for those people who live there now? Ms. Mayfield, we'll start with you.
That's an interesting question. Not really sure.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Well, not repeat the question, the meaning behind the question, because you can't preserve a neighborhood because there's always growth. But what you can do is blend a community by making sure that on our end we provide resources to help counter the new development that's happening in the area. So that is something that we're focusing on. But I think there's a challenge to say preserve, because if it was a low-income community and then you start seeing development in it, do you want to preserve it for it not to grow?
Thank you. And Mr. Netter.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Of course. Question 9 is, how can neighborhoods that are targets for gentrification be preserved for those people who live there now?
From what the community is telling me, they would like to see a lot more of their history presented to the community in the form of art, in the form of different monuments, things of that nature. They don't want their community to be forgotten, but what they do want is for it to grow and prosper, but at the same time keep its grassroots.
Thank you, Mr. Netter. Question 10. What changes in the zoning codes are needed to enable your district to thrive? Mr. Netter?
There are a vast many of them. One I would like to see would be for the businesses so that they can come in and grow and provide the jobs in the community. The housing, would like to see a little bit of that because in some respects, you have different things that are taking place that really aren't being beneficial to our district, even though it's growing. Some small adjustments need to be made, very small, just tweaked here and there.
Ms. Mayfield?
So 2 specific policies I could think of is we have the opportunity to create stronger housing policies and standards locally outside of what our General Assembly has instituted. We need to figure out ways to have much stronger conversations with our development community, but also we need to strengthen our but-for. When you're looking at business investment grants, that gap financing is really where the city comes in. So that but-for is where we have an opportunity to really look at, okay, are we going to put more focus on local job hires? Are we going to put a focus on minority job hires? Are we going to put a focus on our minority small businesses to give them more strength and more teeth when you're seeing all this development that's happening in the city? How do we make sure that as many as possible have the same opportunities to grow their small business? There's some things locally we have the political ability to do. Now it's a matter of showing our political will to get it done.
This next question is a yes or no question. So again, please keep your answer simply to a yes or no. Question 13. Given the needs that candidates have already identified, including transportation, congestion, housing, and economic development, how would you find the resources to tackle them? Would you vote to raise taxes, yes or no? And we'll start with you, Ms. Mayfield.
That is not a yes or no question. So I'm going to say no without further information.
And Mr. Netter?
No.
Question 14 is also a yes or no question, so please keep your answer simply to yes or no. Question 14, should the Civilian Review Board have subpoena power for individual testimony rather than just record review? Yes or no? Mr. Netter?
No.
And Ms. Mayfield?
Yes.
Question 15. Given that the legislature passed a bill that prohibits the people's rights to protest rezoning petitions, how will the people in your district have a say about the development in their community? Ms. Mayfield, we'll start with you.
Thankfully, a lot of the conversations that I have at my multiple neighborhood meetings is reminding the community that I'm their advocate. As the elected official, by me showing up and hearing what the concerns are, that is the opportunity for me to hear whether the community is in support, whether they are in opposition, or they have questions. Anytime a developer reaches out to me regarding any type of rezoning or idea of development, the first conversation we have is to connect them with that neighborhood association. If it is not an active neighborhood association, my next step is to identify those in the community that are active to bring residents together to have a meeting about what is this potential project? What would it look like? How do we move forward? So even though our General Assembly has decided that the citizens' voice isn't as needed when we talk about growth, you still have elected officials that's going to fight to make sure that their voice is heard, and I'm one of them.
And Mr. Netter?
I believe that the community should be, as Ms. Mayfield alluded to, made aware of every possible development going on in the community. You have to have some input from the community, the residents, because they're the ones who are going to be there on a day-to-day basis and shopping and so on and so forth. So you have to have a vast amount of communication through your social media, your town hall meetings, neighborhood meetings, so on and so forth. So it is very, very important to open those channels up so that they can be made aware of what's going on in their community.
Thank you. It is time now for candidates to offer their 30-second closing statement. We'll begin with you, Lawana Mayfield.
Thank you so much. One, thank you for giving us this opportunity, and thank you, Mr. Netter, for being here today. I've serviced this community now for 4 years, a little more than. My focus has been transparency and accessibility. There are multiple conversations that are happening. I have created opportunities for our community that I'm proud of. I'm asking for your continued support as we continue to grow, but I'm looking to the community to step up more. Hold us accountable. Show up. Let us know what you would like from me.
Your time's up. And Mr. Netter, your 30-second closing statement.
I want to be District 3 City Council for the simple fact that I love our district. I love the city of Charlotte. I love the people. And when you have a passion for the people and want them to do better, to be better, it makes for them to be much more vibrant, and also for our cities to be a much greater place. It is my hope that I will become city council so that I can fight for them.
Thank you, Mr. Netter. Your time's up. Again, I would like to thank both of our candidates for taking part in the Charlotte City Council District 3 debate. For more information about the election, you can visit pbscharlotte.org or the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The website is www.goleaguego.org. The general election will be held Tuesday, November 3rd. All polling locations will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., but you must vote at your assigned polling location. You can find that location on your voter card. Remember, every vote matters. Thanks for joining us.